Welcome to the Next Generation Home Delivery for Omni-Channel Retailing conference call. My name is Hilda and I will be your operator. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode. You may submit your questions throughout the event using the chat box located at the right-hand side of your screen. We will address them at the end of the presentation. Please note that this conference is being recorded. And now we would like to turn the call over to Andrew Roscoe. You may begin.
Thank you, Hilda. Good morning, everybody. We apologize for the slight delay in getting started. And I think as Hilda said, we're going to be talking this morning all about home delivery and for omni-channel retailers. And I think just for the format for today, as Hilda said, we're going to go for about 45 minutes here and then do Q&A. So I think if anyone's got questions, feel free to put them into the chat box in the WebEx as we go along, and then we have 10 or 15 minutes at the end just to go through those. So just to take a look at the agenda we have for today, I think certainly every operation is a little bit different, and they all have their own nuances. But generally speaking, I think we see that there's current thoughts about home delivery and solutions that are being deployed in the marketplace today. There's certainly a trend for what's the market standard today, and technology is evolving rapidly. And I think there's over the next several years, there's going to be a significant change in the new gold standard for home delivery. So I think that's essentially what we're going to go through. And then we're going to go through several case studies from leading retailers around the world, and then again the Q&A at the end. So just to get started, I think certainly in the home delivery world today, there's certainly lots of buzz about it, with Walmart, Amazon, Google, among others, all trying to wrestle with same-day delivery, next-day delivery, and really trying to meet consumers' insatiable need for instant gratification. And certainly home delivery is on the rise. It's been a growing trend over the last several years, and of course folks are understanding that it's a need that consumers would like and are wrestling with how to make it as profitable as possible. So as a company, we deal with 300 or so retailers globally that do home delivery today. And so I think there's a wide number of things that people are thinking about based on where they are in their operations. And I think the 5 key things that we hear the most of in today's market are the ones that you see up on the page. So certainly the first one, in light of, and this is I think fairly well understood these days, and in light of labor costs and fuel costs and vehicle costs, maximizing route efficiencies especially for lower margin businesses is certainly on everybody's mind. And the next 3 are really around customer service. So with mobile technology that's out there today, how can we create a more proactive, positive customer experience, whether it's with email, text, or phone calls that are automated, whether that's as simple as letting a customer know that you're going to be there in the next few minutes for the delivery, or following up with them afterwards with a survey to understand how the delivery experience went. The third one is richer mobile data capture. So digital signatures and photos at point of delivery are certainly becoming more and more prevalent, and people are trying to get their arms around the value that can provide for them. Making, whether it's proof of delivery information or even photos available online, so there's complete transparency on what happened. And I think the last one is perhaps the most interesting, and this is, I think, where we're going to spend a fair amount of time this morning, is really talking about how folks are evolving and thinking about how they can offer tighter time slots and tighter delivery slots at point of sale. So instead of following up with an email or after a sale is made to arrange a delivery, how can folks start to offer a 1 hour, a 2 hour, a 3 hour time slot right there at point of sale, whether it's in a store or whether it's online? And so to roll onto the fifth point here, I think what we're seeing, certainly a growing trend with consumers out there is a buying experience similar to the one that you're looking at. So again, instead of committing to just a day of delivery or committing to follow up with the customer to arrange delivery, how can people start to get to, if this is a representation of an online buying experience, I have an item in my cart. Before I go ahead and check out and complete my sale, I have the option to actually look at a little calendar view and start to look at committing to a 2-hour time slot. So I know that if I'm going to pick the Friday slot, the delivery is going to show up between 7 and 9 a.m. and I'm not sitting on my old couch waiting for the new couch to arrive all day, if you will. And I think what we're really going to spend some time focusing on today is how can this experience be delivered and how can it be implemented profitably. I think the initially operators would look at this and say, my goodness, my costs are going to skyrocket. How can I possibly manage this if customers are scheduling the delivery? So I think there's innovative ways that this can get handled, and this is really the core of what we want to get through today. So just to follow up on that, I think there's certainly a couple of myths in home delivery that we really want to address. I mean, firstly, it's really seen as a difficult, high-cost endeavor, and certainly doing what I just showed you around how can I get to offering the customer a 2-hour time slot at point of sale, that certainly means higher costs. And I think we really want to shatter that myth today and really show that home delivery can really be transformed from a cost center to a profit center, and ultimately be a real weapon for retailers to differentiate themselves and really build brand loyalty. And I think we'll circle back to the details on this in a moment, but I think that one of and this has been very well publicized in the media, I mean, one of the leaders in offering home delivery and offering a very high-end point of sale is the John Lewis Partnership. These folks are close to a $4 billion retailer in the UK, and they do fairly broad line furniture, appliance, and general services. And they are offering today, if you go to their website and attempt to buy something, I mean, they are offering 2-hour time windows at point of sale. And the results that they've achieved have actually been staggering. I mean, they have really managed to both increase revenue. So they've managed to actually increase revenue attributed to doing a more intelligent customer buying experience around time slots. It's been tens of millions of dollars that they've added to the top line. And at the same time, they've managed to save about $3 million in logistics costs. They've effectively saved about 1 mile for every delivery that they've done. So, and again, these guys have gained terrific accolades for the work that they've done around this. They're certainly a market leader. And I'm hoping that at the end of the session we'll have a much stronger idea of some of the solution basics that they've done to achieve it. So I think, and this is a bit of a generalization, but I think as we said at the top, there's generally when people are thinking about home delivery solutions today, there's what we hear over and over again is people asking for the same things in today's market. So the current strategy that people are thinking about today is really, I want to, and this is generally for larger format delivery. So whether it's building products or appliances or furniture, et cetera, it could be extended to groceries, for example. So generally people are confirming a delivery date at point of sale. They go ahead and they will route the orders generally the night before delivery or 2 days before delivery. Based on that routing, they will then know what time they're scheduled to be at a customer. So if I'm put first on the route, for example, I'll get an automated email saying, hey, we're going to be there between 8 and 10 a.m. And mobility is significant today, so everyone's trying to figure out how they can go paperless, collect digital signatures, collect pictures in the home for a variety of reasons. and then with this mobile data, really get real-time command and control of what's going on the road to really think about a proactive customer experience. And so I think that's what we're hearing over and over again, and that's fairly well understood in today's market and can be deployed very, very quickly and very, very easily. And I think where the market's evolving to, similar to the John Lewis example that we just went through, I think the market is trying to figure out how they can take that experience to the next level and really get to tighter delivery slots at point of sale. And so what we're going to do now, I'm going to spend a few minutes just doing a quick review of the current thinking and the current strategies that are being deployed today, and then spend the remainder of the time really talking about how point of profitable choice and profitable 2-hour time slots can be delivered. So to start with the current market solutions that are out there, I think just to go through, this is just a graphical representation of what we just went through effectively. So from the point of sale, orders are placed online or at a brick and mortar location at a store. The day of delivery is committed at that point in time, or there's an arrangement where there'll be a follow-up phone call afterwards. All the orders are collected, and then the routing actually takes place. Generally this varies a little bit. Generally the night before delivery, and then again, as we said, automated phone calls can go out or emails can go out, notifying the customers the night before with a tighter window at that point in time of when the delivery will be received. And then there's the mobile interaction that we talked about, and then the post-delivery survey. So I think again, this is I think what people are really thinking about today. And just to spend a few minutes just to go through a quick day in the life with some of the visuals that go along with this. So, for example, if we say it's 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the afternoon today, I've got all my orders in that I know that I've got to deliver tomorrow, for example. We can bring those orders into a logistics system or a routing tool. So whether that's an import from a GERS or a Storis or something similar, and then fairly straightforward, and I think more and more well understood in the market today. You can see all of the blue dots on the map that represent the customer deliveries, the customer pickups, the customer exchanges, etc. And then we can go through what we think about as a batch optimization process. So we can go ahead and see what vehicles we have available today that are available to us in that market. And then when we click on the Optimize button, ultimately there's the fancy math that runs that looks at all the various parameters to actually build routes. And so there's this idea of batch optimization the night before delivery, or in some cases 2 nights before delivery. And the whole adage here is to move from a world of manual route building to really having that done automatically and then managing the exceptions. So the system would chug for a few seconds and then come back with a set of delivery routes. So we can see generally the red bullet represents the cross-dock or the distribution center, and then the lines on the map represent the routes that were built. And I think this is route optimization vendors have evolved significantly over the years, and the main objective is really to model real-world constraints. And so there's a wide variety of things around the street network and traffic patterns and load and unload times and skill sets and hours that all get accommodated. And I think we think about it as the 95% and 5% rule, really try and get to as much automation as possible, and then still have full control for planners and dispatchers to make tweaks to the routes before they lock them down. And so on every route, we can see that we've calculated estimated times of arrival. And so if we follow through my day in the life, I started my routing process at 3 o'clock. I confirm all my routes, and now I can go ahead and trigger out automated phone calls, automated emails to my customers, narrowing down that time slot. So if we agreed that they would get a Friday delivery, we can now let them know that we're going to be there, whether it be between 7 and 9 a.m. or 8 and 10 a.m., depending where they're scheduled on the route. And then moving through the day in the life, I think the next step is drivers can come in. There's a wide variety of mobile devices, and mobile is certainly on everybody's mind in home delivery. So if I'm a driver, this is just a simple representation. I can download my route. I can see all of my stops on the route. For folks that are concerned about MTO, DOT type inspections, you can do a pre-trip report and sign off on it as a driver to save some paperwork directly on the device. And then getting to the point of delivery, there can be, you can go ahead. Some people are have barcoded products that they can scan in. Some people are just confirming the delivery. If there's any exceptions, you can go in. For example, in this case, we're saying that we're delivering the product, but we're marking that it's damaged. We can note any comments, and we can then take a picture of the damage, and then there can be a determination made of should there be a credit, and the customer keeps the product, or is the product coming back. And then to close out the delivery experience, there can be a survey. So, for example, you can give the customer the option, would you like to do a survey either immediately after I leave as a driver? You can get an email or an automated phone survey, or you can go ahead and turn the device around to the driver, have them fill out some basic questions around whether or not they would receive service from the driver again, if the product arrived in good condition, et cetera. And then the customer can sign off and pass the device back to the driver. So this is really all about collecting rich information about the delivery experience to really understand what happened and really get meaningful feedback on how the delivery teams are doing. All of this information comes back in real time, so I think fairly straightforward. Anything that's marked as an exception would get logged in a queue to get worked on by a customer service team. And then I think from a command and control perspective that we alluded to earlier, I think this is a typical representation halfway through the day. So as an example, each one of these little bars represents a route. So fairly straightforward. Yellow is early, green is on time, and red is late. So if we look at this route, we can see this driver started at 5:15. He's currently delivering the 5th stop. And then he's a little bit behind schedule, and we can see that he's scheduled to be late at 2 stops later on in the route. And so whether a screen like this is on a large flat screen in a customer service area or in a dispatch area, so the folks in the office can actually essentially, if you will, be in the passenger seat with the driver, or whether we're tying automated emails to this to proactively notify folks. This is versus the traditional paper-based, the trucks leave and we don't have meaningful visibility to what's going on. I mean, this is becoming more and more popular, certainly in the home delivery world. And I think, so again, to summarize here, I think what we've just gone through here is what we're seeing being deployed across the home delivery market. It's essentially that little simple day in the life that we went through is where people are at today or where people are striving to be today. And the solutions that are available out there in the market today can be deployed very quickly, and it's a very well-proven model. And the bottom line of this slide is there's still meaningful value here. I think moving from a manual planning environment to a more automated planning environment where you go from manual route building to automated route building with exception management, there's typically 10 to 15% mileage savings that are realized there. Having better command and control with real-time GPS information from these devices can really foster some great performance management. I think time and time again we see that at least 30 minutes per driver per day is what can be driven with increased visibility. Same thing with the miles. There's the accountability to make sure that the delivery teams are driving the miles that they should be driving. And one thing that people often don't think about is paperwork. I mean, removing not just the paper, but the paper processing costs, the printing, the imaging, the storage associated with the paper. I mean, nets out generally to 75 cents to $1 per stop, which can be meaningful. And then there's the other benefits around that are a little more intangible based on the operation. But if I can have predictable routes that are calculated, I can improve my on-time percentage. If I improve my on-time percentage, I'm going to reduce my number of no-homes, and then I can be a whole lot more proactive based on the screen that we saw around managing any lates or any exceptions in the field and trying to get ahead of any issues. So I think the net sum here is there's still, in doing some very simple things, there's still generally speaking, we see over and over again, there's $10,000 to $15,000 worth of savings per vehicle that are available in, if you will, in doing the basics. So I think now moving along to what we term the next generation, where we see the market going very, very rapidly. And to come back to the screen that we showed you at the beginning, I think this is really what consumers are starting to push for today and will continue to push for, and certainly with more and more push for same day and next day delivery, this has become more and more prevalent. And so the key question to answer is, how can we offer this type of buying experience? So if I go through, whether I'm sitting with a sales rep in a store or whether I'm doing it self-service online, how can I go ahead and select my items and be ready for checkout, and then be able to be offered up and actually select a 2-hour window or a 3-hour window, depending on the scenario that can be committed to right there and then. And the key question is, how can we manage this while without costs on the back end actually skyrocketing and the operators on the back end having a meltdown? And so just to take a step back, I think we addressed a little bit of this up front with the amazing success that John Lewis has had with doing this, and ultimately, why should retailers be thinking about this? And ultimately, I think there's a few opportunities. So I think the market's shown time and time again that by being able to offer a tighter time window at point of sale, it will definitively increase sales. There's often a little bit of uncertainty perhaps about buying a product. A buyer may be on the fence, whether it's online or in the store, and not being able to have any certainty around the delivery experience can certainly push them over the edge to not buying. And so being able to offer them more certainty around when the product will be there, or offering them, even same day, next day delivery. I think we've also seen in the marketplace that consumers are willing to pay. Consumers are definitely willing to pay a small premium to be able to get committed a 2-hour slot at point of sale. And so the cost can be nominal, but over a larger number of deliveries, we see that can certainly add up. Revenue streams are also possible by bundling in value-added services. So if you can not only schedule the delivery, but you can schedule an install or a takeaway at the same time, I think that's another opportunity for a revenue stream. And certainly, and I think John Lewis has proven this in their marketplace, really this can be used really as a competitive weapon in the marketplace, to really use logistics excellence as a brand differentiation and to really drive customer loyalty over time. So I think continuing on to more of the detailed solution aspects, I think there are certainly people that are offering delivery slots at point of sale today, and 9 times out of 10, the way that that's implemented is with what we would call a static time slot approach. And so to give a very simplistic example, in Toronto, which is a city near and dear to my heart, generally speaking, what will happen is you'll carve out a zip code area. So let's say in this case downtown Toronto, and you know that generally speaking, based on historical demand, you'll have 2 trucks in that area. And so if you generally have 2 trucks in the area, you you can say, you can tell the sales guys, or you can make available on the e-commerce site, 5 slots, from 8 to 10 a.m. And the challenge with that, of course, is that this is just based on historical averages. So if, for example, there was 3 large orders that were placed, and they were placed on the opposite ends of that zip code area, you're going to have more likely than not 2 missed deliveries because you won't be able to fulfill all 5. And then in the other extreme example, if you've got 8 neighbors side by side that place a very small order, you could have certainly done a whole lot more than 5, 8 to 10 time slots. So there's definitely a capacity utilization challenge here. And what happens practically in this model is there's people behind the scenes constantly monitoring this. So if let's say for this Friday, we had 5, 8 to 10 a.m. slots that we were making available, people are constantly looking at this going, what did people actually order? Okay, no, we can't offer 5 anymore. We have to reduce that number. We can increase the number. So there's a constant manual readjustment behind the scenes of opening and closing these static time slots. And the fundamental concept here is that the order management system, or the e-commerce site where these orders and this point of sale experience is happening, is ultimately fundamentally disconnected from any type of logistics routing tool. And so in the ideal model, we talk about this as a company in terms of dynamic time slot generation. And really, the technology's evolved over the last several years. The key here is really to have the e-commerce system or the point-of-sale system actually intimately, closely tied with the logistics system. So and essentially be asking questions in real time. And so the concept of having a very tight real-time interaction between the order system and the logistics system to be able to offer realistic time slots is really the key here, and that's what we'll talk a little bit more about. And again, I think there may be folks that are out there that are offering time slots at point of sale today, but 9 out of 10 of them today are doing it statically and managing those time slots completely manually in the background. So the key is tighter real-time interaction. So just to take a little bit of a step back, I think what enables this to happen, so how can we tie the e-commerce system into the logistics system in real time to make it usable? I think the key here is there's 2 key technology breakthroughs that really enable this to happen. One is continuous optimization, and then 2 is sub-second dynamic time slot generation. And so these 2 topics probably merit a day's worth of conversation, but just to cover off on them fairly briefly. So we talked earlier in the current thinking, what I would think of as the traditional model. If we look at a sample timeline for Thursday deliveries on here as an example, so an order can get placed on Monday, and orders can get placed, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, depending on service policy. And ultimately, as we talked about earlier, there's this idea of a batch routing process that will take place the night before delivery. And then with this idea of continuous optimization, it's a completely different technical concept where in the same idea, if an order is dropped on Monday and then orders continue to drop through Monday through Tuesday through Wednesday, there could be reschedules, there could be cancellations, there could be updates to the orders. But there's this idea of what we call continuous optimization, where the optimizer is constantly running in the background over this time period. And so if I'm a user looking at the logistics tool, I can look at it at any point in time and look at what's coming on Thursday. I can see up to the second what the routes look like based on my demand so far. And then the interaction becomes very different. On Wednesday afternoon, I turn off the automated routing process, and then I can audit my routes and go ahead and make changes and manage any exceptions. But I think the bottom line here effectively is that from the time the sales order drops, the routes are constantly being worked on by the optimizer, and at any given point in time, in the background, there's a snapshot of what the routes look like. And so I think that's important to understand because that's the building block in my mind to actually using the logistics system in the background in real time. So that was, again, this idea of continuous optimization, I think, is a key building block. And the second technical innovation is dynamic time slot generation. So if I go through my little example, so let's say I'm in a store with a sales rep or I'm online, I'm on the store, I go ahead and pick my product. So in this case, it looks like I'm buying some sort of washer and dryer. So in the online buying experience, I would just go ahead and click for delivery options. And in the background, what happens is there's, and this is completely transparent to the consumer and happens in a second. It goes and asks a question to the routing tool, to the logistics system, and says, well, based on the fact that the logistics system knows up to that second what the routes look like with the demand at that point in time, it can very quickly at that point in time do the optimization, so do the calculation that considers driver hours and skill sets and vehicle capacities, and actually do all of that in under a second, and then ultimately pass that back to the point of sale system. And the key thing here is that given that the calculations are happening, you actually know the logistics cost associated with each one of those options. And so we get to this notion of profitable choice. And so from a consumer perspective, I go ahead and I buy my washer dryer, I click for delivery options, it thinks for a second, and then you come back and you see the options that are available. But in the background, it's done all the calculations very, very quickly to make sure that the options being presented are feasible and are cost effective. So I'll walk through a more detailed example in a moment, but you can start to see here that for my address for the product that I'm ordering, the retailer didn't want to offer me the 7 to 9 slot on the Friday or the 9 to 11 slot on the Saturday just because it wasn't cost efficient for them to do it. So this idea of I'm constantly optimizing so I know at any given second what the routes are based on what's being sold so far. And I have the technical capability to ask the question to the logistics system based on a new order, what all my options are and their cost. These are the building blocks to start to really transform the home delivery experience. So if we just drill into this a little bit more and go through a little bit more of a tangible example. So if I come back, I'm going to go ahead and buy my washer and dryer. It's going to cost me $250. Someone's getting a fairly good deal. I go ahead and click for delivery options. So what's happening in the background, so in my simple example here, I have two routes that were already built. So this is what's been sold and committed to other people, and they're already on the actual routes. And then with my order, it passes my order that I'm just placing, and it passes it to the system, and this is my order. I know that I'm ordering the washer and dryer, so I understand how long it'll take to deliver it because it's that specific product. I know my geographic location. This is where I live. And then the ultimate, it's asking the logistics system, what's the best way for the retailer to deliver that order? And the logistics system does the math very, very quickly. So we can see that there's an option on Route 1, which is the orange route, and that cost is $28.50. And then there's an option on the green route, which is Route 2, which is, given that it has to go a little bit farther out of the way, that option is $35. And so this calculation that I'm just showing you here, again, happens all in 1 second. It's the rocket science, if you will, behind the scenes. And then what gets passed back to the order management system automatically, again, the optimization actually happens, and then what we see is what the e-commerce system gets passed back is, well, we can do it on the first route, which was a $28 cost, and that was a 9 to 11 slot. Or we can do it on the second route, which was, as we saw, a $35 cost, and that's from 11 to 1 p.m. Or we could do it at the end of those routes in the afternoon, but the costs of looping back to this area are obviously more expensive. And so everything that I just showed you here, after I clicked that, the show me delivery options, this whole process of calculation and then the passing back to the retail system, the question then is for the retailer, how do you want to display this information to the consumer? And to come back to the example, so we see here so there's a couple of things to point out. I just showed you a very simple example for one day. Ultimately, given that we're doing continuous optimization across multiple days, you can simultaneously evaluate it against the routes across multiple days. And so in the little example that I showed on the 26th of April, we saw that the 9 to 11 slot was the cheapest one. And so in this example, in rendition in the point of sale system, it's actually interesting. They're saying the 7 to 9 wasn't available. We're not going to do that. We're not showing any afternoon slots because even though I knew they were possible options to put into the routes, they were just too expensive. I don't even want to show those. And then they've done an interesting thing here for the $28 delivery that was the cheapest. They've branded this as the eco-delivery environmentally friendly concept. And so they're trying to incent the customer to pick this slot to manage their own carbon footprint. And ultimately the joke is that it's the green slot, but of course it's the money-making slot as well, because that's the slot that builds the most efficient density. And so I think what I'm showing you here is a retailer's choice on what they want to do with the information they get back from the logistics system. But the key thing to understand is it's entirely up to the retailer. There are some customers that will only show one option per day, and that is the most cost-effective option. Or there are other folks, like in this case here, that will show you multiple options, try and incent you to pick the best one, but then show you other options that they deem to be profitable for them as well. So it's this whole idea of giving a phenomenal customer service experience to the end consumer by giving them choice, and also having enough intelligence, because we've done the calculations very quickly in the background, to understand which slots should and shouldn't be offered. So I think to summarize what we've just went through fairly quickly, I think there's really two key technology breakthroughs. One is continuous optimization. So we know at any given second what the most efficient routes look like based on what we've already sold. And then for all net new orders coming in, we can very rapidly, sub-second, ask the question of what slots are available and what are their associated logistics costs. And this ultimately enables retailers to intelligently control which options they're showing to the consumer at point of sale, this idea of profitable choice, and then really try and incent customers to build the best logistics density for them on the back end. And then the benefits of, as we talked about, I think we're absolutely increasing on-time delivery because the delivery slots that we're committing to have been, all the math and all the calculations and the drive times and the service times have been calculated, so we know we can commit to them because they're getting committed to a route. Offering a 2-hour time slot at point of sale will definitely enable retailers to sell more product. It's ultimately reducing the barriers to sale. And at the same time, and this is the whole beauty of it, it will enable them to reduce their logistics costs on the back end by offering only profitable slots, and then open up a potential revenue stream by selling the premium time slots. And I think what we've seen, there's generally about 1 in 4 customers are absolutely willing to pay a premium. And so just to give you an idea of an implementation from one of our customers, the way that they think about this is in trying to turn this into a revenue generator. What they offer different tabs at the top. And so what they do at point of sale is they say, well, look, I can give you a 7-hour window, and I'll make it free. And so, and then again, they've got this idea of, you can tell here that the green slot on here on Thursday AM is the one they're trying to get the customer to choose, even though the Thursday PM one is still acceptable. And then there's a second tab here for the premium delivery, which is the 2-hour time slots, and they're actually charging a premium, in this case $10 for that time slot, and it's the exact same thing for same-day delivery. Same-day delivery begs a broader question on fulfillment and whether or not a supply chain can support it, but the logistics problem for same-day delivery is the exact same one that we just went through. The only difference is that you know the real-time location of your vehicles to assess whether or not you can make it and what you can offer. And I think the beautiful thing here is that you can offer, a 2-hour time slot in the future for $10 and then a same day with a committed time slot for an even larger premium. So I think what I'm showing you here is the way different retailers have thought about this at point of sale. And then ultimately it's up to the retailer how they want to leverage their knowledge of what the profitable slots are and how they want to guide customer behavior. So I think just to wrap up, I think there's a couple of interesting things. We talked a little bit about John Lewis, so just to go full circle, we introduced this at the beginning. They're offering 2-hour time slots at point of sale, and they've managed to significantly increase revenue by charging for 2-hour time slots and by making online scheduling of, so I can click to schedule an install or a takeaway at the same time. So they've really done a great job creating a revenue stream. And by only offering the intelligent, profitable time slots, they've managed to actually, at the same time, save $3 million with this idea of the eco-delivery concept. And they've actually effectively saved 1 mile for every delivery. And so moving on to Samsung, slightly different, exact same deployment using the exact same strategies that we've talked about here. Samsung's interesting. The volumes are incredible. So they actually sell online in Korea. So they're selling appliances and electronics. It's amazing the volumes. They're doing in peak season. They're doing 20,000 orders a day on 1,000 trucks, and they're actually offering 1-hour windows at point of sale. And their big uptick was their online close rates. So their previous delivery experience, they realized that they were missing a ton of revenue opportunities because people would go through and they were about to close out their sale, and then the message popped up saying, hey, we'll contact you and let you know when we'll schedule delivery. And they realized that at that screen there was a ton of people closing out and canceling out and weren't closing. And so by being able to offer a committed 1-hour window, they significantly increased their online close rates, which was a big coup for them. And the last one is Crate and Barrel. I mean, and this is, Crate and Barrel is not offering time slots at point of sale. But to go back to the point of there's still a tremendous value in starting simple and doing the basics of route planning and mobility. They've managed to reduce their cost base and increase their on-time performance, and with surveys get an incredibly invaluable insight to what's going on in the field. And I think with that note, I think there's the key takeaways in my mind here. I think there's the way we see the market is there's a current strategy that people are thinking about that really doesn't involve anything intelligent at point of sale. It's all about routing and customer service and mobile tracking, and there's absolutely value there. I think there's we've seen $10,000 to $15,000 worth per vehicle per year. And then there's where the market's going. And where the market's definitively going is really doing more intelligent things at point of sale and really thinking about how we can transform home delivery from a cost center to a profit center to create more, to create additional revenue streams. And so ultimately, I think there's people start simple and evolve over time, and there's a couple of ways to skin the cat, but ultimately, I think thinking about home delivery and the technology deployment, this definitely means to sell more, spend less, and really transform the customer experience. So I know we've covered we started a little bit late, and I know we've covered a tremendous amount of material in a short period of time. I hope this has been educational for everybody. I think we're very passionate about home delivery. We wake up every morning thinking about how we can improve home delivery process, and so we love talking about this stuff. So we welcome any discussion following up from this meeting to dive into more detail on some of the subjects that we've talked about here. And with that, I'll open it up to Q&A. As we said at the beginning, there's the chat session that's open, and so people can go ahead and type your questions in there, and then we can address them as they come up. So just looking through the questions, I think there's a couple that are flowing through here. So I think one, so there's the question here is that there's a number of folks that are leveraging, and this is fairly obviously a common model in today's world, around leveraging third-party carriers to actually fulfill the deliveries. And so when we talk about savings around route optimization and around improved efficiency and getting to $10,000 to $12,000 per truck per year in savings, how can a retailer realize those? Because they're essentially outsourcing all the logistics. And I think that's a little bit of a relationship question with the third-party carriers. We've seen a variety of different models employed. But the high-level answer ultimately to the question is if there's savings to be had, so if more efficiencies can be gained in everything from routing to paperwork to reduced phone calls and communication, if that's the savings that the third-party carrier is realizing, ultimately that calls for a chargeback or for a contract renegotiation to pass those costs along to the retailer. And as I've seen retailers bake that into have this a partnership discussion with their third-party carriers to essentially share in the savings that get realized. So another question here is around service policy. So the question here is that we've talked a lot about 2-hour time slots, and we talked about 1 hour, 2 hour, and 3 hour slots. Really, what determines how big the delivery slots are at point of sale? I think so. This to me is a question of delivery execution. From a pure technology standpoint, whether it's a 1 hour slot or a 2 hour slot, I mean, there's folks out there that offer a 1 hour slot to gold premium customers that are spending a lot of money, and then 4 hour slots to everyone else. But the size of the delivery slot really, to me, depends on delivery execution. So are the service times in the home predictable enough so that you can actually know that you can execute the plan that you're laying out? So for example, in the two extremes in my mind, someone that's doing grocery delivery, they know every time that they're going to be in the home for 4 to 5 minutes dropping off the totes, so they can be very, very predictable on what their delivery times are, and so they have the luxury of being able to offer a 30-minute or a 1 hour time slot. On the other extreme of the cable guy, the field service folks, where they don't necessarily know how long the job is going to take because they don't know necessarily what's gone wrong until they get there. I mean, then at that point, just the fundamental business DNA doesn't offer the flexibility of being able to do a tighter slot. So then a 3 or a 4 hour time slot would be more applicable there. So there's another question coming in on photo capture. So just the value of photo capture and thinking about, you know, how people are actually gaining value from that. So I look at that from two different angles. There's a cost savings accountability. So think about what photos are taken in the home. So the property is damaged, go ahead and take a photo of the property. The product is damaged, go ahead and take a photo of the product. But if we're taking, you know, if we're doing a delivery path inspection and photographing it, and we're taking photos of the product, this ultimately effectively eliminates the back and forth after the fact, whether it's with the consumer that calls in complaining about damage of some sort, and it avoids the fight with the consumer, the third-party delivery carrier, and the retailer. So it ultimately provides very transparent visibility to what happens, which will ultimately drastically improve the overall service experience and hold everyone accountable. And then the other angle, I think what's becoming more and more popular is delivery teams are actually taking photos of the placement in the home. And this is actually being passed along to the sales team at the retailer. They get a snapshot of how the furniture looks in the home, see what else is in there, and see what the room looks like, and prompts for the follow-up call to the consumer to make sure that everything went okay with the delivery, and of course to maybe remind them that the leather chair would look phenomenal next to the beautiful leather couch they just bought, for example. So bear with me. I'm just going through the questions. There's a few coming in here. So one of the questions is, are there cost-effective solutions available for businesses that aren't necessarily enterprise level? So presumably the question's around smaller fleets, and I think the question's absolutely yes. I think being able to do in the model that I showed of saving $10,000 to $15,000 per vehicle per year, being able to deploy route planning and mobile tracking with signature capture and photos on a device, those are very, very cost-effective solutions today that can get deployed in a software-as-a-service environment, so there's very, very limited IT involvement, and can be deployed very, very quickly. I mean, there's fleets that I know of that are running 5 and 6 trucks that have this technology deployed and are realizing significant benefits. So there's a question here around density. So how much density is really required to do 2-hour time slots at point of sale? And presumably it's around, you know, maybe more rural markets where there may only be 2 or 3 delivery trucks. So there certainly has to be a small amount of density. I would think if you're doing 2 deliveries in a market, it's probably a different type of problem. But I think that the fact that, to me, density is less of a problem because if you're actually doing the 1-second optimization at point of sale to generate time slots, you can understand what it's going to take to get to that customer. So whether that customer is 50 miles or 50 kilometers away or 10 kilometers away, it doesn't necessarily matter. The calculation is going to be done to show you which time slot should be offered for that customer. So whether it's density or whether it's a question of geographic coverage, the fact that we're actually doing the optimization at point of sale essentially insulates you from having to be concerned about that, again, geography or density. Okay, I think I know we started a little bit late, and I think we're essentially up on our time on the hour that we had today. I think there's a couple of questions that we didn't get to, but we will be sending out, we will make the material presented online here today available to all the attendees. And we will also put together answers to all the questions that were asked and answered, or that were not answered. So that'll go out and be answered in document form as well. And would certainly, we're always looking to get better and learn from our customers. So would certainly welcome any discussions after the fact as well. So I think with that, I want to thank everybody for their time. Wish everybody a good lunch hour for those of you in the Eastern time zone, and we will close out the call now.
Thank you. This concludes today's session. We thank you for participating. You may now disconnect.